Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live Q&A. Hey, so we just wanted to jump on here just as we adjust to, I guess, what is this new normal, going to be this new normal for us over the next few weeks. Obviously, we're not able to get out on farm as we usually would be at this time of year. And so we've been fielding quite a few questions, I guess, over the phone just to help with a lot of these activities that are happening on farm at this time of year. And so we thought we'd jump on here to help answer some of those really common questions.
Yeah, I mean, just to support what Emma's just said, is that we've got quite a large team of us, all of whom are normally out on farm, and like you guys, are not out and about. And what we're seeing is just a repetitious common theme of questions coming through. And while each and every one of us can, work and will continue to work one-on-one by FaceTime or phone or whatever, really the commonality of these questions made us think, is there some way that we can get some answers out to some of the more commonly asked questions in a forum such as this, just to share the information around.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who don't know us, so I'm Emma, part of the PGG Wrightson Seed sales team, obviously based at home at the moment, like many of you. And this is Charlotte.
Yeah, so hey all, good to catch up. Again, those of you that I haven't caught up with at any stage, I'm also with the PGG Wrightson Seeds team, but on the animal side of things. So my background is I'm a registered vet, but have specialised in recent years in the nutritional side of it. So I'm working alongside here with Emma today just to help field any questions and come up with a few quick answers about any of the nutrition and health aspects of managing new grasses and things that we may need to be thinking about with basically, permanent pastures recovering post-drought and also any new grass or crops that may be also coming to life over the next week or two. And just, here's a tag team, hey, agronomy and nutrition. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Hey, so to kick off, guys, one of the first questions that we thought we'd chat about was those decisions around what can we still plant. We're obviously at the end of March, and I guess that burning question is, how long have we got in terms of planting perennial ryegrass? When do we make that switch to things like the more winter active options like Italians and annuals, and therefore cereals? So I guess from an agronomic perspective, it really is going to vary from region to region. So there's not a one size fits all thing here. But basically it all depends on that soil temperature and where the soil temperature's at. So in some regions, it's definitely still warm enough to plant perennial ryegrass. And when I talk about perennial ryegrass, obviously considering clover here as well. So what we really like to say around that is, as long as the soil temperature is 12 degrees or more, really comfortable for perennial ryegrass and clovers to still be planted. Once that soil temperature drops, that's when we have to start switching into those winter active options. So, just to put it into context, one of my colleagues in the Waikato, Kyle, works a lot with our farm, and our farm, apparently their soil temperature's still at 20 degrees. So obviously they've still got lots of time up their sleeve, versus some of our South Island colleagues who, it's starting to get a bit too cool now. So basically, every week we wait from now is going to cost us in terms of yield, in terms of that delay. So it's always the sooner the better, especially as well with those winter active pastures. The sooner the better. So that's probably my take a bit around there. But I guess, Charlotte, from your perspective, what are some, I guess, what's your thoughts on the cereals versus the winter active ryegrasses in terms of a nutrition point of view?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. By preference, and again, it's driven exactly as you've said by agronomic decisions of just whether it's got too cold and too late, even for an annual, and then we sort of have to default to a green feed cereal if that's all that we're really expecting to get some decent yield from. But if it's warm enough still to go for an annual, by preference, I think there's more flexibility offered by an annual. On average, the quality will be better in terms of ME, definitely better quality protein. And obviously, if you do get it through the winter in good shape, you don't sort of pug it and treat it and damage it too much. There's opportunities to shut it up for a stool, depending on when you shut it up, a good quality silage at the end. So agronomic decision first, but if you have under that subset of going either an annual or a cereal, I'll take annual every day of the week, but it's agronomic first. Options are, you have $1 each way, would be to consider combining like an oat with your annual. So you've got that bulk of fast feed. And then again, if it's not too badly damaged and that oat's pretty well eaten out, then the quality comes back with the annual that will be there predominantly through the remainder of the winter. But yeah, the nutrition is second to your agronomy decision. Yeah.
Agronomy decision first.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlotte. Hey, so that's kind of around the decisions in terms of what we plant. But for those of you that have actually got seed in the ground and the pastures establishing, it'd be good to kind of chat about what's important at this time of year. So I guess a few tips from me from an agronomy point of view with establishing those new pastures would firstly be, don't underestimate the importance of weed control. Early herbicide applications are brilliant because they take out weeds when they're small and susceptible. And so they're not going to be kind of competing for that light and moisture with your pasture, and I guess enhancing that tiller development. So that's super important. Another one is light and early applications of nitrogen. So I guess anywhere from that 3 to 4 weeks after emergence and post grazing, 25 kilos per hectare would do the trick. But I guess this leads perfectly into something that you could chat about, Charlotte, is we do just need to be vigilant around those nitrate levels pre-grazing. And Charlotte, a really massive topic, but if you were able to comment a little bit around that, that'd be great.
Yeah, good question. Obviously, every year we need to be very cautious with regard to risks of nitrate toxicity. And this year, I think we do need to be particularly vigilant in being aware of toxicity risk, particularly where you may not have had a chance to get a perennial ryegrass base mix into the ground, and now you're chasing these late established annuals, Italians, and then green feed winter cereals. So the reasons are not only that we need to chase the speed, exactly as you said, Emma, around light applications of N really to get things moving along, but the majority of us will be very aware of the risk of once we get rain and the soil temperature is still warm, like 20 degrees at our farm. Wow, that's still pretty warm. Is that plus moisture, we end up with a lot of mineralisation, which is simply taking the organic nitrogen and converting through to inorganic that then is quickly available to the plant. A lot of nitrates accumulate around the roots of the plant and are taken up by the plant. And because it's post-drought, we tend to see more nitrate issues in a year this year. So this is the year for it. It's a hell of a big topic. I do wonder, in the interest of time, if we might actually set up, and again, we'll welcome comments, just bomb some comments underneath this post, and we'll go through them and see if you're interested in nitrate as a risk factor that I think as an industry we need to be. We might actually run a separate session specifically on nitrate. We have got some problematic issues this year in that, unfortunately, because we're all on lockdown, the likes of Hill Laboratories, just in contact with them yesterday, and due to obviously the same issues that we're facing, they're unable to have a quick turnaround time. They may only be working every second day in the lab to get nitrates looked at. So I think what we might do, if it's okay, Emma, would be we might just take that offline and run a session, for example, early next week that is specifically dedicated to the risks, why nitrates accumulate in plants, how do we manage for that, particularly if we have issues not being able to test for it. I don't know what the number of test kits are out there in vet practices at the moment, but if it's okay, we'll just pause that nitrate one, but I think it's one worthy of coming back to.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And so I guess, Charlotte, just with that first grazing of those new pastures, any practical tips in terms of what stock classes are best and the nutritional attributes of that really soft grass that you could comment on?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think majority of people that have, you know, from year to year to establish new pastures, we're aware of all the basic issues about just, you know, walking out to the paddock, just the basic pull test to make sure that the grass, just think, and particularly for young cattle, the way they eat, obviously with young cattle, is they wrap their tongues around the new grass that's coming through, and so you've got to pretend you're a young calf, having a wee pluck test on that young grass and see whether it's lifting out. So that's probably the first most important thing. The second thing that will be relevant not only for newly established pastures this autumn, but also potentially for the recovering grasses in terms of your permanent pastures coming back to life. If we go too early, the nutritional profile of those grasses could cause a few issues depending on stock class and how much grass is being eaten. But on average, the dry matter percent of this new pasture coming through will be very low. For most stock classes, that's not a particular issue. But for things, high demand stock classes, and I'm thinking specifically autumn calf dairy cows with a high energy demand, it's a lot of mouthfuls, if you'd like, of wet material to not get a lot of dry matter. So that plus low fibre, low NDF and high protein can potentially cause a problem, particularly for stock that you've been lovingly hand feeding for the whole of the summer on high rates of supplements. They come across onto this very soft feed, and that may be an issue as well, requiring time to continue to allow for rumen adjustment from a high supplement feed or diet onto the soft grass, which I suppose I'll throw it back to you, Emma, on that point. Like, when do we go onto some of this? Like, how long do we leave this stuff, assuming that it's not pulling out of the ground? What's some other rules of thumb that you recommend?
Yeah, so that good old pull test is about as good as it gets when knowing when to graze, and it goes back to that tiller density. So we want light to be able to get into the base of the plants to enhance that tiller density. So I guess your best friend is going to be a good early nip. So it's just don't be, as long as we're not pulling the grass out of the ground when we do that good old pluck test to try and mimic what the animal would do when grazing. I'd encourage you to get on and not bank the feed too much. And remember, I'm talking about perennial pastures here, because obviously when we're doing, you know, things like an annual ryegrass, I guess we might have different objectives, but yeah, it's super important for the tillering of those perennial pastures. So do the pluck test or the pull test. Might put up some videos later to actually show exactly what that looks like. But yeah, getting in early is super important, because we do want the light. We do want that light getting in there to encourage that tiller density. So yeah.
Recovering permanent pastures that we've nurtured through the summer, we haven't overgrazed and we've done all the right thing. A couple of those, you know, some of those pastures might be one leaf at best, or 1.5 leaf, depending on whereabouts in New Zealand everyone is. What sort of leaf emergence or, you know, pre-grazing mass or whatever should we be chasing so we don't create persistency issues, I suppose, for some of those pastures? What do you reckon?
Yeah, so you mean existing pastures, Charlotte?
Yeah, so these are waking up permanent pastures.
Waking up. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. I mean, so many parts of the country. I mean, I'm based in Hawke's Bay. We're still incredibly dry over here. I know the Waikato has had a bit of rain, and so it's just being conscious around that when we receive that rain, and just being careful with how we graze those new pastures. I mean, so many parts of the country, you know, pastures are going to be significantly stressed following this dry summer. That period immediately following the drought is so important. And again, it's just to allow that tillering to occur. So after that first initial rain, what we want to do is not nip that first green off too early, but we want to leave it to accumulate 2.5 to 3 leaves for each tiller before grazing. And I guess just think of it as just allowing it to rebuild those energy reserves, which of course very depleted at this time of year. And I know it's tricky, and we've been feeding supplement no doubt for quite a long time now, but I guess, Charlotte, there's, you know, potentially just some of those practicalities around that, but ideally we just want to keep them off those pastures until we do accumulate a bit more mass, just so we don't compromise persistence, and it is going to help set you up better for winter if you do that. Yeah,
so it's a win-win, isn't it? So I mean, you're looking after the plant, but then, as I mentioned before, it's quite a abrupt change in diet, going from a higher level of supplements onto the soft grass. So it's a win-win. You're doing the right thing by the plant, and most importantly, doing the right thing by the rumen. Just so that, particularly in young stock, some of the issues we loosely coin up as, or phrase up as, ill thrift, autumn ill thrift, quite often is just the abrupt change from a summer-based diet onto autumn. There's a lot of other things about autumnal thrift that again we can cover off in more detail. Anyone's interested in why sometimes stock classes, you know, will basically no longer go ahead in terms of live weight. There's a lot of animal health and nutrition factors, but essentially what's good for the pasture by continuing to feed supplements, especially because after that first rain, quite often you get a total loss of dry matter, don't you, Emma? You can drop 2 or 3 honey in cover just because, you know, you're rotting down some of the thatch and stuff. So yeah, keep the supplements going just to keep off those pastures from that persistency point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, so guys, that's probably all we had time for today, but we have received so many questions actually over this Facebook Q&A leading up to it, and over a number of topics. So, you know, if there's an appetite for it, what we'd really like to do is jump back on here next week and cover a different theme. So obviously today was very much around new pastures, but also those pastures that are just waking up post-drought. And Charlotte mentioned nitrates. That's potentially a topic on its own. But yeah, what we'd really like to do is come back here and just yeah, be a bit of a support network for those of you who've still got heaps of questions, when obviously it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to get people out on farm at the moment to help with some of those decisions. So in the meantime, our agronomists are here to help, and we have an 0800 number, which basically means if you've got any questions relating to anything agronomic, give our 0800 number a call, 0800 805 505, and that'll bounce you through to your most local agronomist from one of our team. But yeah, we'd definitely like to jump back on here next week with some new topics. So please keep the questions coming, because if you're asking them, I'm sure a lot of people are asking the same ones. So yeah, it's been great, and thank you so much for all joining us. And yeah, we'll hopefully be back next week.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
See you next week.
See ya. Bye.